Hey guys, Dark Humility here. Today we will be going over the Werebear Sorceress. This will be an update, a 2.6 update for the Bear Sorceress Guide. You can always catch me, of course, at www.twitch.tv/Dark Humility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action, D2R, 82, even Diablo 4 coming up soon. Of course, you can check out the rest of these video guides and so many awesome video guides for Diablo 2 on my YouTube, and the most professional and comprehensive written guides at maxroll.gg, where this guide will also be located, and so where you can get even more detailed information about the Werebear Sorceress. Of course, we are doing this guide here on my single player on D2R, softcore single player, using gear and items acquired from my old LOD Pluggy Grail, which has been ported over so items presented are or feel at least somewhat more realistic, despite them potentially being fairly costly. Werebear Sorceress is one of the most costly builds in the game, but you're a bear. And it's super fun. It is a C tier build, arguably overall just like the Zeal Sorceress, with some advantages compared to the Zeal Sorceress, but also some disadvantages. In many ways, the build ends up being very similar, so if you want to check out her sister build, the Zeal Sorceress, you also can as well. She is a beast though. She can destroy Ubers. We'll be showing off demos throughout the game in highest player count, lower player counts, and of course with Ubers as well. And of course we'll also be showing you guys everything about the stats, skills, Mercenary, and gear beforehand. Of course we'll have all those chapters. You can refer to any part of the guide if you want. And of course the link to the written Maxroll guide below. So, the Werebear Sorceress is a beast. Super tanky potentially, super insane damage. Damage number is crazy, as you can see, unbuffed here with like no buffs on whatsoever. It shows 44,000 damage. This is completely normal for this build. I can do some very basic buffs here, and then we can start going over the stats. And then of course, you guys can evaluate for yourself how much of a beast this build truly is. Alright, so of course, you can always swap in CTA, turn into a bear, and voila! Health, mana, and more. As you can see though, at minimum, this character is going to hit 50,000 damage on pre-buff, so this is no pre-buff. With pre-buff, it'll hit higher, and of course we'll show that later on in the guide. In general though, you're going to want to put enough strength in to wear your gear at minimum. That's about it. Most of your damage is lightning damage, but you also have a solid amount of fire damage and a little bit of physical damage on this build, but hardly any at all, so pretty much non-existent. Of course, you also have a decent amount of defense, and that's from having both frozen armor and having, of course, Werebear. And the Werebear mode itself grants bonus defense, so you do end up with a fairly solid amount of defense in this build no matter what. Our attack rating is low, but you're going to want at least, I'd say, about 5,000 with unbuffed enchant. With buffed enchant, you can get more. Because you have the negative 83% enemy defense from the Conviction Aura on Infinity, you don't need all that much attack rating because that will apply to every monster, and they'll have just far less defense, allowing you to hit them a lot easier with this character. Now keep in mind, the level of your character will also determine how easy it is to hit a monster as well. So attack rating is not even really the most important stat for that, but as indeed the case, of course, this hit percent chance does not take into account the Conviction Aura on your Mercenary, You could also further get a Blessed Aim Mercenary if you want maybe a few thousand more attack rating, but I don't personally recommend it, but of course I'll go over that as we do it. You have maximum chance to block here. That's key. Old versions of the Bear Sorc on LOD would not get maximum block because it would interfere with your attacking, but now, as of patch 2.4 and D2R, your attacks are uninterruptible in bear form. And so having maximum chance to block now is better and will in general lead you taking to a lot less damage. And so you're going to want to have a high block percent shield in addition to either Twitch Throw and Guardian Angel, which we'll go over in a bit in more detail. Whereas the rest of your points will be split between Vitality and Energy. I don't recommend going super hard on the Energy, because one thing you'll notice is that in Bear form, you cannot refresh your Energy Shield.
Impossible.
You can't use a lot of skills in Bear form, so this is something that's quite a bit different from the Zeal Sorceress. It's one of the disadvantages. You know, the advantages are that you can get a lot tankier, and in some cases even hit hard, you can hit fast, and since you're uninterruptible, you can hit pretty much every time. The main issues, of course, being that you can't use plus skills, so you know there's definitely a lot of comparisons between this build and the Zeal Sorceress, but just wanted to let you know exactly how it works there. This is indeed one of my favorite builds though of all time though, and it's still a lot of fun in D2R. They have changed it in some ways, like you can't get quite as high of attack speed, but your attacks are much more reliable, you can get tankier, and they still do an insane amount of damage. So, of course, we'll show off a couple of different ways to build this character as well, but alas, that's about it. I like to put like 50 to 100 points into energy, because that energy shield can just act as a buffer essentially. That's kind of what it is. You're mainly kind of relying on health. One thing to note about Werebear form is not only does it give you increased defense, it also boosts your maximum life because of the skill Lycanthropy here on Beast, which will give you Lycanthropy, of course, which is nice. Lycanthropy is percent maximum life, so that's really good. And so the Werebear form itself is favored. It's better to put more points into life, whereas the Zeal Sorceress in a lot of cases you just want to max mana. Here you want to focus more vitality so that you can take advantage of that maximum life from Lycanthropy. However, like I said, you can definitely get up to like 100 energy, and that kind of helps to provide an extra buffer, at least in my opinion. You can of course play it different ways to allocate points. On LOD, you would used to put like no points into dexterity at all and have like no block if possible. Use like a kite shield. You can still do that, but since you attack slower, you're gonna find that's gonna be very painful most of the time. So I actually recommend a very different approach now. Build. So we have Guardian Angel. You can get very high resistances, taking advantage of that 90 all resistance. Maximum is very good, so try to hit your maximums if you can, or very close to it. You can get 90 all res, and res is very good on this build. Once again, you are relying more on your life than your energy shield than on something like on a Zeal Sorc. So with energy shield, you know, when you take resistance damage to your mana, your resistances don't matter. So if you take elemental damage, the resistances won't factor into the damage taken to your mana, only to whatever health you have. Based on whatever percentage the energy shield is not absorbing, and that's it. But since the energy shield isn't quite as big of a feature on this build, and since usually you'll actually expect to lose your energy shield in this build, at least when I play it, because you actually expect to lose the energy shield, you'll and you just have it as a buffer. You'd really want to make sure you have this resistances so you can actually tank things with your health. It's very important. Just like with the Zeal Sorceress, it's pretty easy to get anywhere between like 50 to 200 magic find, 100, 200 magic find on this character. Depending on what items you wear, I'm not using a Geeds, for instance. You can use more MF charms rather than life res charms. I'm just showing off a whole medley of types of charms that could be useful for you. And yeah, you can definitely get a lot more MF. Get more MF in some of these places as well. And just in general, you can have pretty solid ability to farm. Kind of like with the Zeal Sorceress, it's pretty good at elite targeting, and so you're going to want to target elite packs if you can. Or, of course, it's just like the Zeal Sorceress, it's good at Ubers. So it has a lot of the same strengths, but the way you play it is a little bit different. Now, unlike the Zeal Sorceress, you need an insanely large amount of attack speed on a Werebear Sorceress, and this is partially because of how they changed it in 2.4. So now, unlike 2. Before, where only attack speed on your weapon counts when you're in a shapeshift form, you know, whether it's on a druid or a sorceress, doesn't matter, or, you know, any character that's a werebear. It would used to be only weapon attack speed would factor into the attack speed calculation in shapeshift forms, but now attack speed on your entire build factors into it. So that's quite a big difference from how it used to be. So now attack speed everywhere matters, and you need a lot more of it in order to get close to that attack speed that you can get into LOD. I think we're still, even with this much attack speed, I think we're still 2 frames slower, but it's pretty fast, which is good. And once again, it's uninterruptible, and you're a lot tankier than that version, which just makes the gameplay a lot more fluid and smooth in a lot of cases in D2R. But you really need that super high attack speed to take advantage of it. Now you can get, of course, if you want to see the exact breakpoints, I recommend checking the written Maxroll guide. There's a breakpoints section. There's all kinds of advanced sections. You can do a more deep dive into some of this stuff, but yeah. There's certain setups we'll be using as well here that use 95 attack speed breakpoint, which is 2 breakpoints back. That's pretty much as slow as I recommend you go, but there are certain builds where that actually is, it's fine to do that, and you'll still be doing a ton of damage, and it feels good to do that, so very good stuff. Hit recovery, so most of the time you're going to be blocking and whatnot, so hit recovery isn't insanely important. You also have more health, so like elemental damage has less chance to put you in a hit recovery, but having more than 60 at the very least is good here. Like having about this amount will be decent in bear form. On your swap here, when you're teleporting, having 86% is nice because you don't have a lot of health and mana sometimes when you teleport, so that can be good, especially if you're not using CTA, so you're going to want to keep that in mind. You are going to, the block rate is nice. It's nice indeed. Mostly helps with teleporting, but it also helps with just taking less damage in general, allowing you to block more often, which is good. So that's, you know, it's Guardian Angel is very good for that reason. Your attacks are uninterruptible though, so block rate isn't quite as important once again. Neither is hit recovery. So these stats aren't like insanely important, but they're very important. And then of course on your offhand, when you teleport, you're going to want to hit the 63% faster cast rate breakpoint, at least on the standard build. And that's going to allow you to teleport fairly quickly in between packs and to kill them. And of course, these stats will become more important against Uber Mephisto, but currently they're not like super important. As you'll see though, if we swap back to our main, they don't actually exist. Open wounds and crushing blow, of course. Slowest target is nice, but usually one-shot most things. You are going to want cannot be frozen. You do want a solid amount of attack rating if you can. Getting attack rating on your other ring can be very nice, for instance. Don't have that on this build, but it could be very nice. Sundering lightning immunity is good because it's going to increase your damage. That plus infinity is going to allow a lot more of your lightning damage to get through, and means you'll be able to destroy whatever monsters you want. Of course, you also have a large amount of percent fire damage and percent lightning damage, and that's really the key making this build tick. So that's pretty much it on the basic stats on the standard build here. Let's go over the skills a bit. Skills are pretty much identical to the Zeal Sorceress, who happen to also watch that one. You're going to have a frozen armor, 1 until frozen armor, max warmth, enchant, and fire mastery. Of course, you can have a slightly lower fire damage. Your fire damage isn't the majority of your damage anyway, so you can lower this and you can increase energy shield instead. The idea is to get a pretty high level energy shield. You can use a memory staff to help you with that as well. Max out telekinesis. And then you're going to max out these for a max enchant. Warmth helps out the energy shield, helps your mana sustain better as well. So does max telekinesis. It means that you take less damage to your mana when you take damage to your mana because of energy shield. But, you know, the higher the energy shield, the more damage goes to your mana instead of your health. And the less all those stats that only apply to your health matters, like resistance and damage reduction. You don't want 1 point to teleport, of course, no matter what. Static field is really good. And then, of course, the really important thing, besides all of this, is lightning mastery. You really want to make sure you have maximum lightning mastery. Because this plus dual dreams, level 30 holy shock, plus really high level lightning mastery makes you do a ton of damage. And that's really the major source of your lightning damage. It really boosts it a lot. See, there's no synergies for Holy Shock on a Sorceress, unlike maybe like a Dream Paladin, for instance, where you have the synergies for Holy Shock instead, and that's how you get your damage. You have the Lightning Mastery, and that's absolutely what you need to make that work there. Okay. So, now that we've gone through all of that, let's go into the Mercenary. So skills are pretty straightforward. It pretty much is always that skill distribution, by the way, on this character. Really aren't a lot of things to do that are different. Mercenary, Holy Freeze is really good. Slowing the monsters down so they don't do as much damage to you and can't hit you as fast while you're destroying them is very good. This is kind of the same as the Zeal Sorceress. Ideally, this is what you want. If you really want to maybe slightly increase your ability to hit things like bosses, like Diablo, Bale, you can get Blessed Aim. He's not usually going to survive against Ubers anyway, so I wouldn't really bother with that. And your attack rating against Ubers is fine anyway. And if you do have the Conviction from him, once again, that negative enemy defense will mostly do the work. But there are some other types of things you can do. You can have Defiance Aura to take advantage of the huge amount of defense you get in bear form. So you get a lot of extra defense in bear form, right? You know, you get a lot, especially plus frozen armor or something like that. So you could take advantage of that with Defiance. You could get Blessed Aim. I personally like Holy Freeze. I think it, because I like to just one-shot things at high player count, I personally think it feels really good to use Holy Freeze. And as long as you have Infinity. So Infinity is one of the required items, I would say, to make this build feel good, kind of like the other one. You have a lot of lightning and fire damage. You need that negative 85% enemy fire and light res, and the ability to at least have negative 17 enemy fire res and enemy light res against immunes to the respective immunities because of the 1/5 penalty. And of course, if you have a Sunder on top of that, the Sunder will apply first, set their resistance to 95, and then you'll get even more negative res on top of that. So Infinity is always amazing in that regard. And putting it in an F fast weapon is typically preferred, especially for the crushing blow. So like an F giant thresher. A thresher is usually preferable. Unless they're doing like a lot of players 1. See, this is good for high player count. This build destroys high player count, so typically I like that. If you're doing a lot of players 1, you can have a really strong weapon that's not fast, like a war pike or something, but or a Stygian pike, something like that. In general, this is the best type of build on the on this character. It helps to supplement your damage as well and keeps the Mercenary alive because you do a lot. The Merc will do a lot of damage. It'll have life leech, have attack speed, have a lot of defense as well. So all those things kind of contribute to the Mercenary's survivability and even helps out his damage. You don't really need the Merc's damage too much when you do this much damage though. Of course, there's a lot of other possibilities as well. You can use Chains of Honor with G-Face if you want more crushing blow. You can use Cure even, plus something like Chains of Honor, so you can still have Life Leech. And you can have the Cleansing Aura, which will keep Amp off of you, and Poison Damage. Poison Damage is even more annoying on, like, especially on, like, energy shield build, and it's really important to keep the poison damage away, especially on hardcore builds as well. But like pure energy shield builds, once again, this is not the Werebear, unlike the Zeal Sorc, doesn't really go quite as hard on the energy shield, so I don't personally think, like, I wouldn't use Cure necessarily all the time. You can definitely consider something like that for hardcore though. Just giving you guys a bunch of useful options that could be very good in patch 2.6 on your Werebear Sorceress. A lot of good options for sure. Alright, so besides the Infinity, which is a mandatory item on this build, the only other mandatory items, things that you absolutely have to have, are Beast. This is how you turn your Sorceress into a Werebear. I use it on my weapon swap, because this is not going to be your main weapon. That's why it's ethereal. I don't even use it, so I don't even attack with it. It's you can make it whatever base you want, doesn't matter. The whole point is to turn you into a Werebear. Your main attack is going to be normal attack, so unlike the Zeal Sorceress where your attack is Zeal, which makes sense from Passion, you're actually just using standard attack because you can't use Zeal or anything else in Werebear form, so it wouldn't matter anyway. You can only use normal attack in Werebear form. So we're going to turn into a bear, and then we're going to strike things with their normal attack. The other things you absolutely have to have besides Infinity and Beast for this build to really feel good are Double Dreams. You definitely need Double Dreams, not just one. Level 15 Holy Shock will not cut it. You need level 30. Level 15 plus Max Light Mastery will give you some damage. You'll hit kinda, decently, but it's gonna feel pretty bad. You really want to be one-shotting max player count monsters if possible, so you're gonna want 2 Dreams. Now on a Werebear, since you get all those defense bonuses, I'd even recommend, instead of the ones I have shown here, which are the same ones I used on the Zeal Sorceress, to have a Bone Visage. Make sure to pump up that defense. You get more defense on a Dream Bone Visage than a Diadem, or a Diadem, whatever you call it. And then, of course, Dream Tower Shield. There's other options like Hyperion that have similar block, and Troll Nest that have similar block and block percentage. And you can use those to get more defense as well. That's not as important on the Zeal Sorceress because you really don't have any other defense buffs. But I'd actually go with lower strength requirement and more block percentage on the Zeal Sorc. I'd actually favor higher defense and maybe slightly less block percentage on the bear. You can kind of do whatever you want though. This isn't gonna make a big difference. It's just a small difference, but just thought I'd talk about some base stuff there with the Double Dreams. But the Confuse though is insane. There's a lot of built-in survivability here. Res, a lot of built-in magic find, mana for the energy shield. The Confuse is great crowd control. So Double Dream is really going to make this build pop off, and when we show it off more, you're going to see how good it is in general. Alright, so we need to really talk about the weapon. So there's a lot of different options for the weapon. We're actually going to show you guys a lower attack speed option, which also does a ton of damage as well, which is Crescent Moon. Once again, since we don't have Zeal, we're not chained to Passion on this build. So really what you just want is really high attack speed on your weapon. So Phase Blade is the fastest base. Just putting a whole bunch of jewels or shales, like, attack speed, res jewels, shales, even burr runes against bosses. I'll show you guys that too. Is very effective. The classic Griswold's weapon approach is still good, but because that's not maximum attack speed anymore, and you need a lot more attack speed on your build, it's not quite as good as it used to be. So you can still do something like that, though. It's still not bad. It's still a very good way to get attack speed, and then you can get a bit more physical damage in case maybe you have some leech on like gloves or rings or things like that. So that's good. The other main approach, though, that doesn't rely on attack speed would be Crescent Moon. And Crescent Moon, as you might know, has a huge amount of negative enemy res. It's negative 35, even gives attack speed and has some physical damage stats, which is kind of nice. You can almost use it as it maybe was intended to be used. Whereas one of the problems that's always been a problem is that even with Crack of the Heavens from patch 2.5, 2.6, and even with Infinity, you don't really have a lot of extra negative res, so when you break lightning immunes, you're mostly relying on that enchant fire damage before. Now that is still true, but With the advent of Crescent Moon, you can also get an insane amount of negative light res on top of this, which will just allow you to pretty much one-shot everything, even lightning immunes. So this build can sometimes hit even harder than the Zeal Sorc, but even if it doesn't hit as fast. So there's a lot of similar things going on here, but it is definitely something I thought I would mention. So that's really cool. In general, though, it's a lot of fun. So there's a lot of different approaches. That will definitely be a slower approach, but it will be a much harder hitting approach. So you can definitely do that. We'll try to show you guys a couple of those options there. Guardian Angel, you either need Guardian Angel or Twitch Throw pretty much on this build. That's pretty much how it works. You really need that increased chance of blocking. So you want maximum block on the Bear Sorc now, just like the Zeal Sorceress. And you're going to want those higher chance to block shields, like Tower Shield. Like I said, I'd even recommend like Troll Nest for the huge amount of defense it has, or Hyperion. Those are good options. And in general, just having that high increased chance of blocking is good. One thing to note is since block rate isn't quite as impactful on this character because your attacks are uninterruptible, Twitch Throw is perfectly fine. However, the thing about Guardian Angel is that it also gives you these 15 Maxroll res, and it has higher defense, which synergizes with your defense on this build. If you upgrade it, it's going to cost so much strength that it's probably not worth it, so I wouldn't do that personally. So you got to keep your strength a little bit lower, but overall, it's a solid approach. And as you can see, we have more attack speed here. We actually need all 175 attack speed on this current build. You can't skimp on the attack speed in your Guardian Angel, like maybe on the Zeal Sorc, where you could just use Gloves, Weapon, and Amulet to hit 65. You really need all that attack speed everywhere on the build. But you have attack speed res. In general, that's what you want. Attack speed all res, attack speed res, jewels, things like that. That's kind of the same thing as with the weapon. So this will also work, of course. You know, it says hit recovery, and it gives you even more attack speed, which will definitely be important when if you want to use Crescent Moon and lose 100 attack speed on your weapon. So we'll show some different approaches, though. Once again. Gotta say that once again. Alright, so Beast is on the offhand, as we've already shown. And then, of course, you're going to have Spirit. Now, Spirit's going to allow us to hit that 63% faster cast rate breakpoint on your offhand. This is really key for moving quickly between packs. Also, of course, this +2 all skills will also apply to your form and lycanthropy and things like that. And, of course, it will also apply to CTA if you put in enough strength. I don't recommend doing that, though, because the strength provided by Beast is very useful. So as you can see, we can't currently even use this. But that's fine. You can just bow without your Spirit if you want, or you can use this wall or something temporarily. It doesn't require as much strength, but it has 1+ skill. And you can do that. Anyway, pretty good. So this is attack speed and plus skill. Plus skills are also helping lightning mastery, at least on the main hand here when you're actually using your weapon. So that's really good. I don't think there's anything better than this. Cat's Eye would also be decent, but you also have lightning res. Deadly Strike doesn't do much because it's not physical damage, but that's okay. The rest of the stats are like irreplaceable for this particular build. I'd say on the Zeal Sorc sometimes you can go like Caster Amulet and things like that, but on this character it's really rigid amulet-wise. It's pretty basic stuff. For gloves, you really want attack speed gloves. You can just use things as simple as Laying of Hands, of course, but you can also use different resistances that have Magic Find on top of that, which is really cool. Laying of Hands, though, of course, once again, you don't do physical damage, so you don't really need something like that. You can just use anything with like a rare gloves with attack speed, stats, tri-res, anything like that will work very well. If you don't want to hit quite as much attack speed, there's some other options like Frostburns, Chance Guards and stuff like that. And I really recommend you hit as much attack speed as possible to really make it feel good. So that 175 attack speed is pretty key. Arachnid's Mesh and an FCR ring is how we get the remainder of that 63% faster cast rate. Having attack rating on this ring would also be nice, because even though you have Conviction and you have Enchant and all that, it doesn't hurt to have even more attack rating. As you can see, you have a really high attack rating Raven Frost as well. Yeah, even with the negative defense reduction effective conviction as well, it really doesn't hurt to just have more attack rating elsewhere throughout the build. So having some attack rating is very good. Once again, it's even possible if you wanted to use Blessed Aim on the Mercenary if you're really feeling lacking, but most of the time you probably don't need that. I definitely prefer the crowd control options and defensive options because you're going to be taking some damage oftentimes. Arachnid's Mesh, very good. Once again, plus skill as well. This really has every stat you could possibly want on it, even the mana for like the energy shield buffer, attack rating, dex for max block. Cold absorb, cannot be frozen, really just has all useful stats on it. I don't mind having this. You could put a Cham in here instead, but then getting the rest of your attack speed is challenging. You might have to use like Nosferatu's Coil or something, just to get some more attack speed. It's very possible. Yeah, or you have to use like 2-piece Death Set or something. Those are definitely some good options for like PvP, for instance. Like 2-piece Death Set isn't bad, but once again, like most of the time, you just want more attack speed. We're doing just the normal PvE approaches here. Yeah, if you didn't know, this is also, just like the Zeal Sork, a very cool PvP option. It's just, it hits so hard that you can just one-shot a lot of people, but it can be hard to hit very mobile characters or characters that aren't dependent on hitting you in close range. Just keep that in mind. Anyway, so we have the boots, mana, max of mana, dual res, fast rune lock. That's all good stuff. Of course, you could just have rare boots, like this one, for instance, tri-res, dexterity, magic find would be nice. Once again, another way to get more magic find. Of course, there's going to be other options as well that we're going to show off for the actual Uber killing, but I wouldn't worry about that right now. Alright. And then, of course, you can also have Geeds. Talked about that. Yeah, there's a lot of different options. You can go War Traps as well. There's more defensive options like Dungo's Burr in here for like more damage reduction. For hardcore, once again, always going to want more damage reduction, especially on a build that has max block and more life. And of course, you could get even more emphasis on life charms and things on hardcore. But that's all you would do for hardcore. We're not going to demo that. It's not super... I don't think it's super complicated. It's just like the Zeal Sork, where there's not a lot of options to really add more defensive power because you have to use the 2 dreams. So, yeah, there's definitely options though for sure for bolstering your hardcore play. Absolutely. All right. Then of course we have a 2028 Annihilus Charm here, which is pretty sick. 18 to 17 Sork Torch, very good. Generally just want really high stats, Torch and Annie. CTA is very nice to swap in and out if you want to increase your health a bit more. This can be very instrumental in very difficult areas or just on hardcore to boost it. It's a lot easier to use a CT on a Zeal Sork because you don't need Beast, but yeah, you can always swap it in. Keep in mind though, you have to bow before you turn into a bear. Every skill except for normal attack has to be used before bear form, and that includes any kind of other pre-buff as well. Then of course we have some lightning skillers, hitting some good FHR breakpoints there, keeping our FHR up, and then Crack of the Heavens will allow us to do more damage against lightning immunes with Infinity stacked on top of it. We also have an all resistance GC, and then we have life res, all res, MF res, and everything like that, of that nature. So, very cool stuff. And yeah, that's kind of how it is. Life res, FHR res, mana, MF, mana life GCs as well. If you want to get even tankier, you know, it's something that you do on the Zeal Sork. I think it's even better on the Zeal Sork though, because you're more focused on energy shield. But you can still do it here as well. So I mean, life. These are giving us a lot of damage though. I mean, if you check this out, I lose, you know, like 1k of damage, even 2k of damage in some cases. So it's like averaging about like 1,500 damage per GC. So that's something very interesting to to note there. Notice that we're not even using all of our lightning GCs because I really want to make sure we have tankage ability. It feels, you do so much damage on this build that oftentimes it just feels better to get tankier. And it's kind of the same thing with the Zeal Sorceress or sister builder. In a lot of ways there's a lot of similarities, right? Anyway, so those are all the main things. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over some low player count, some high player count without enchant pre-buff, then we'll do enchant pre-buff. Then we'll go show you guys Ubers with, you know, all the pre-buff, especially for Mephisto. Mephisto is really the pain on this build, just like with the Zeal Sorceress. And if it wasn't for Mephisto, these builds would probably be rated higher on the overall late game tier list on Maxroll. Only reason why they're not is because it's a little more frustrating to kill those than, say, on a lot of other standard builds that can also do it in the late game. Anyway, you're going to want a bow typically. And then you can do all of these things. Do your enchant, frozen armor, and energy shield. Put your beast back on. And then start teleporting on your swap with your FCR. And I believe I just want to show players 1 first here. What you do is transform into a bear, swap your weapon back. You can see here that in range of the Mercenary, range of his auras, hit very reliably. I think this is player's 8 actually, because it was P8 beforehand. Let's see if we can go into player's 1 here. Yeah, I think this is just P1. So what you do is after you're finished killing the monsters in an area, you untransform out of the bear and go right back to teleporting. So you do another weapon swap. All these weapon swaps on the Werebear Sorceress is definitely something to get used to. It's definitely something you don't have to do on the Zeal Sorceress. As you can see, the animations are pretty crisp, so it's not like you're going to be wasting a lot of time going in and out of Werebear form here. It's actually kind of cool. But yeah, players 1's really easy. You know, the pit's really solid. You can do some other interesting areas as well. Let me show you guys some Ancient Tunnels, which is another max level area that can drop any item in the game. Notice that we lost our CTA buff. If you want to keep refreshing it, you can. Just keep in mind though, don't have to. Especially in P1. If you're just like playing solo like this in P1. Now you can use mana potions to keep your mana up. These target elites though. This character does so much damage though. P1 is kind of a joke, honestly. Kind of a joke, just a little bit.
It is an honor to serve you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, P1's kind of a joke here. Alright, but we can show you some more examples here. Yeah, it's definitely something to get used to transforming. Switching your weapons to transform and then switching back to attack with your regular attack. Notice here though, we're still attacking very fast, and that's because of how much attack speed we have. It's really important to get that attack speed. We're not quite as fast as an LOD, but we're close, and it will make it feel very good. You really can't get that fast anymore. I think you can get maybe 1 frame faster with Fanaticism, but then you don't have the conviction aura, and then you're basically not doing any damage. So there's definitely some other things you can consider here. So I think I'm actually going to let the CTA buff go off just to show you guys. You don't even need to use the CTA buff. Especially not for low player count. Mercenary isn't close to us. You can always teleport, reposition the Mercenary like that, and retransform. Sometimes on this build it can be hard to reposition the Mercenary so that he's on top of you. Once again, you can't teleport in Werebear form. You can't do anything in Werebear form. Not like that, anyway. As you can see, though, my attacks are literally uninterruptible. I'm blocking this whole time, and the monsters literally can't do anything about it. So that's actually something that's really cool that's new in D2R. So if you play the Maul Druid too, which is another guide I have on Maxroll. Currently only have a written version, but the same thing though. Do it. There you go. Had to use one Juve there, but that's about it. It can be you can do some pretty serious damage there, right? So watch this. I can do this. Because the static him down, and then I swipe him once with my paw, and he's done. That's it. Definitely a lot of fun. Yeah, so like one of the big problems before with the Werebear is that if you ever blocked in Werebear form, that includes the Werebear Sorceress, of course, you would pretty much just get stunned in an animation and you couldn't even attack anything. So even though you could attack a little bit faster, a lot of the times you get put in that stun animation, which is why you really needed as little block as possible in the previous version. But even then you would still block oftentimes. And, you know, the hit recovery, you know, being put in a hit recovery would also prevent you from attacking. In a lot of ways this does feel a little bit better. I do sometimes miss the attack speed though on the original version of this character though. It's kind of cool how fast you could do. Kind of looked kind of neat too. As you can see, it's still a lot of fun. So we're gonna actually bump up the player count soon here. Remember, this is no pre-buff, so. See, our energy shield with no pre-buff is like 71%. Some damage there on Enchant. You do something like Nillifox, so you could do key farming as well. Oh, that's not how you find it. Where are the double paintings? One painting there, one painting there. There we go. Right next to each other. There you go. Shot him. Don't really need to use static field in Players 1, but I do it by habit. You can if you want. You can probably just one-shot him without static field. So you don't even need static field against the bosses. You can still like two-shot him, so. But you can if you want.
Afternoon.
So you only have to swipe him once just for added effect, I suppose. So the Werebear Sorceress, as you can see, is a little more nuanced than the Zeal Sorceress. Zeal Sorceress kind of just buffs and then on their plus skills on the weapon swap. But they don't, and they teleport on their weapon swap. They don't transform on their weapon swap. So it's a little bit easier to manage. Alright, so what we're going to do now is show you guys some Players 3. Pretty standard stuff. I'll show a couple areas in Players 3. It's not super important though. And then the real fun will be showing you guys more areas in Players 7, which is really where this character excels. Being able to crush high player count and being able to crush single targets like Ubers. So maximum drops, things of that nature. Oh, that's right. I guess we kind of want the plus skill. If you're going to do the CTA thing, you may as well do like all the buffs with your CTA and then... Actually, no, wait. That's right, I can't use my Spirit Monarch, so you actually don't want to do all the buffs with that. Do all the buffs with the beast on after we do the CTA buff. Yeah, you'll notice though. Even the double dream holy shock, level 30 holy shock aura kills everything. It's really freaking strong. Insanely strong. Nice thing. One thing to note here is that even though you don't have zeal, you can just kill everything not in bear form if you want to. But there's no point in doing that. Bear form just gives you a lot more survivability, and it makes you attack faster. This bear is unstoppable. You just can't stop me from swinging, man. It's like Merryweather, man. Can't stop the drive. It's getting wrecked, though. Okay, here we go. So what we're gonna do now? Mayweather Mephisto. Alright, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna continue. I'll show you guys a couple more Players 3 things here, and then we'll actually go to the real demos, just kind of showing you guys as we ramp up just how easy low player count is with this build. It's really a joke. Just swap to your main attack. You don't want to accidentally swing with your, if you have like an ethereal beast or something, make sure you put something that's not normal attack on your left click there. I still sound like a sorceress and I'm a bear. It's such a... It's so ridiculous, right? Alright, so we'll do that there. It's pretty solid stuff. Alright, so we can also do like chaos. We'll do one more chaos here in Players 3, and then we're going to get to the real demos. You know what, actually? Make sure you have your energy shield on when you're teleporting, especially though. You're not nearly as tanky as when you're in bear form, so keep that in mind. We're actually taking some damage here. Looks like my energy shield's off. You can always go back into sword form to redo your energy shield if you feel like you're really struggling with survivability. Wow. We're taking a lot of damage right now. I think that's the, I think there's like a multi-shot monster over there. I think that's what's going on. Remember, you can only use telekinesis in sorceress form, so you can turn back. And see in Players 3 though, now the monsters get a little bit stronger in terms of damage though. That's when you might want to consider switching back to CTA. Either way though. You lose your energy shield, it's just your health, so keep that in mind. But notice that I have pretty decent health there, even without CTA, and that's just all because of bear form. So you go back to teleporting, make sure to refresh your energy shield every time. Takes about a microsecond. Definitely worth it. Do a ton of damage, so yeah, as you can see, even Players 3, it pretty much looks like Players 1 almost. It's kind of how it should be.
Not even death can save you from me.
Oh, he's dead. Oh, I see. He's got lower res on him. Okay.
What do you need?
Alright, so that's pretty solid stuff there. Crushes Diablo, of course, no problem. So yeah, he does a lot of damage, you know, somewhere between, you know, he can get up to like 60k damage very comfortably with a lot more plus skills. Even just on this, if I just wear some lightning GCs, but with pre-buff and more plus skills, the damage will pretty much rival exactly what the Zeal Sorceress can put out. But of course, with his huge, mangy paws. This build is just not bearable for the monsters. Can't bear it, man. Can't bear it. See what I did there? Probably not, but that's okay. Anyway, so we're gonna go to high player count here now. We're actually just gonna go straight up to players 8. Player 7's maximum for items, but players 8 is kind of cool to show. So we can actually show it in a bunch of different situations here, which are very useful. Now, I'm not even going to use CTA here. And then we're just going to crush it, absolutely crush it. It's really easy stuff, really crush. So we're in players 8 now. A place like the pit really doesn't stand a chance. Oh, oops. Didn't transform. That might happen a couple times. You get used to it though. Eventually, weapon swapping back and forth and transforming and whatnot will become second nature. Now for a high player count, when the monsters have higher HP, just like with the Zeal Sorceress, you can use Static Field on your FCR swap. That can make it even faster to kill the monsters. So yeah, right there. Really easy stuff. Boom, ba da boom, ba da boom, and bam. Player's 8 pit, pretty much flattened, right? And if you stack MF against those, you can even get rid of a lot of the lightning GCs in there just because you do so much damage. As you can see, I don't even need like buffed enchant or anything. I like to show non-pre-buffed approaches first because I do realize that a lot of people really don't like pre-buff. I'm kind of one of those people. Sometimes I just don't feel like it. It's a lot of extra work, and unless you're like spending a lot of time in the game or doing Uber bosses, personally, I don't think it's like the most revealing approach or the most useful approach in most cases. But yeah, it just depends. Okay, so what we're gonna do now. We are going to now do, let's do Arcane. It is a terror zone right now. I can just show you guys like players 8 T zone. Standard terror zone gets pretty wrecked, right? Now the damage varies quite a bit. So one of the big boons of pre-buff is that you get a lot more consistent damage. So that's why I definitely hope to show that here in a little bit.
I can't carry anymore.
Okay. Okay, so let's continue here. Kill the specters. Boom. Keep in mind, we're not even using static field most of the time here. That's how ridiculous this is. Now, if I...
Good day.
That's kind of a decent demo there. Let's kind of show her off in a few more scenarios as well. Now, I actually would consider Trav not to be like an ideal scenario for this character because it has like fire and lightning immunes. But no matter what, you can still do it. For Trav, I'd probably beef up a bit more though. You know, maybe swap out a CTA. Maybe get some Barbo. Let's see here. Taking a lot of damage. Ow. That's a little tougher here. High player count is definitely a little tougher. But overall, it's not too bad, right? Might have to use a couple jubes here and there. Maybe, maybe, maybe not.
Yes. Good day.
Okay, so... Okay, so... Pretty good stuff overall there. Let's go make our way to... Players 8. Yeah, Sanctuary. Remember to make sure your energy shield is up in between casts of teleport. These monsters have a lot of fire and lightning resistance. But with the Thunder Charm, notice I can actually do some pretty serious damage to them. And if you use the Fire Thunder Charm and you pre-buff Enchant, you can actually get pretty ridiculous. Notice here, always making sure my energy shield stays low. This is Players 8 Chaos. We can just slam some monsters. It's just a ton of fun. It's honestly pretty insane build here. Yeah, look at all them monk. Pretty good. This is honestly one of the more difficult areas for her, and yet still pretty solid. Let's take into account the energy shield is very nice to have, as you can see. Provides a really good buffer here. You can definitely put all your points into health if you want, and put no points into mana. That's definitely an option, by the way. Then your health is higher, but you'll lose your energy shield a lot more often, more reliably. So once again, you can really try a lot of combinations of stats on this character. Something I do like to emphasize there. Okay.
Good evening.
That's a pretty good charm, but we don't need it, so we're gonna throw it on the ground.
Greetings.
As you can see, there are CTA right now. Yeah, it's pretty decent clear, right? You know, you can clear the monsters.
Impossible.
Oh, don't accidentally do that. Make sure to transform back into a human before you put on the CTA. Gotta transform back into a Nephilim. In high player count, you definitely, against monsters like this, really gonna want to make sure you use that static field. Or it's gonna be rough.
I am overburdened. I can't carry anymore.
Absolutely. Alright. And then go take down some Diablo and then easy mode, right? Easy mode. Static field him. Static field his ass. Slap his ass. He's dead ass. Boom. Pretty easy to do there as well. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we'll do, I think, Pendle and Bale. No, sorry, not Pendle. We'll do Nilithok and Bale. There are also some strong areas as well. And then, of course, we'll show you guys with Enchant buff and also some other approaches to the build, including Crescent Moon.
Yes.
As you can see, there really are a lot of things you can potentially do on this character. Honestly, she feels pretty solid. This is a pretty expensive key farmer, not gonna lie, but, you know, if you want to farm some keys on it, so you can go crush some Ubers on their single player, I can understand. There's Nilithok dropping, even dropped a key. It's pretty insane.
Salutations.
Heck yeah. Alright, here we go. Alright. Got a couple of keys. Smash them. Alright, so the other thing is, of course, we can do World Stone. Make sure to enchant both yourself and your Mercenary. Now, Energy Shield's not going to do much in here. You can probably see why. Souls have a ton of mana drain. You're not going to be relying too much on that particularly. But we do have 90 light res though from our Guardian Angels, so the souls aren't actually doing as much as they typically would do. It's just another one of those benefits of Guardian Angel, besides being able to get you max block with a reasonable amount of dexterity. It really helps out your survivability just in general. And as you hear, it's a lot easier for me to maintain my, my mana, not lose my energy shield. Not bad for players 8, right? Remember, of course, in high player count, static down the enemies if you can. These ones are lightning immunes right here. It'll take a little longer to kill, but as long as you have the Sunder Charm, it really isn't that bad. On the standard setup here. 1-2-shotting practically everything. The one shots definitely come in when you hit. Tend to hit higher or towards the higher end of the damage distribution. Okay, so we have that. Our bow ran out. It's okay though. Main problem there is we lost our energy shield, which definitely is helping out our survivability quite a bit. One thing to keep in mind is that elemental damage is tanked a lot worse than physical damage by your mana, so having your energy shield up is a lot more important against things like dolls than it is against like souls and pit lords. This is something I think I also mentioned in my Zeal Sorceress guide as well. Always a great benchmark to test builds against World Stone Keep and Players 8 and Bale. Not in Players 8 Bale, of course, because Bale doesn't drop additional items and he doesn't give you additional experience even. Alright, so we can take this opportunity here to rebow. Alright, there we go. You see decrep though, it's making us even slower, so that's kind of lame. If you want, not for wave 2 because that takes too long, but for some of the other waves you can actually go behind those 2 pillars there. And then Bale can't hit you with Decrepify back there, and you can kind of lure the monsters back there. Standard solid approach there, standard solid approach. Okay, so we also have that. That's good stuff. Static field them down with their teleport faster cast swap. Slap, 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 and then even in P8 they die pretty fast. Yeah, this is all without pre-buff too or anything else, so like you can always go harder on the damage or less hard on the damage depending on what you're trying to do. Look how tanky I am. I'm uninterruptible, so they literally can't stop me from attacking. I can just sit in the middle. Even with the Zeal Sword, you might want to be a bit more cautious, but with the bear, just start swinging, man. It's honestly a pretty awesome feeling just sitting in the middle there and just tanking them without any problems at all. Check out Players 3 Baylor here. Bale has block in addition to good defense. You can see that we're hitting him pretty much the entire time already, even with like no attack rating, and that's because of conviction, so. Mercenary is doing a good job of staying alive. And that's some more good stuff there.
What do you need?
Alright. Okay, so Okay, so excellent stuff there. Awesome. Okay, so as you can see, that's like the standard build, and that's pretty much all the standard content, and it really destroys. But what if we want to try some slightly different approaches? So first what we're going to do is we're going to try the standard approach here, and we're just going to like pre-buff enchant. So this is going to be a lot of fun. It's really hard when we put on enchant. So the thing about enchant is that enchant can be kind of annoying, let's be real. I see. Yeah, it's the 156 strength requirement thing. I guess we don't have to do max enchant, you know, I think we'll be fine without it. Yeah, we'll just not have any plus skills. Keep in mind you could use like lidless wall though if you wanted to get like another plus skill there. That could also help you out. Yeah, sometimes the logistics behind getting all your plus skills. So for the most part for enchant, you're really trying to get plus skills plus fire skills. And then also percent fire damage can also help a bit too. So having some facets throughout can definitely prove very instrumental here. But notice once you have all the fire skills pretty much everywhere, including under shield, this isn't 100% optimal there, but that's okay. One good thing is that because of the hotkeys on D2R, it's so much easier to pre-buff than it used to. You used to have to like click and drag. Which I'm sure a lot of you guys were around when that was pretty much the thing there. So we're also going to get battle command as well, just to get as many plus skills as possible. And then you'll see we have level 51 enchant. We can have, if we put in enough strength, we could have level 53. We could have level 52 as well. We even have level 54 or 55. We have 6 enchant here. Definitely possibilities, and we could have even more damage, of course, if we yeah, we could have even more damage if we had like percent fire damage facets and things like that as well. So yeah, just keep that in mind. No. Alright, so we're gonna put all of our standard gear back on that we pre-buffed enchant. You'll notice that our consistent damage is really high now. Like really, really high. But the crazy thing is it's about to get higher. So believe it or not, the lightning GCs give us more damage than enchant, of course, because of the double dream and lightning mastery. It's just how she goes. And you can see now our damage is enormous if you put all that back on. Of course, I don't even have everything back on yet. We're still trying to put all our gear back on. Okay, so all right, looks good to me. Looks like a pretty standard thing. 175 attack speed. All right, so here we go. So we do a lot of damage. It's over 60,000, of course. You know, once again, you know, you can like push 70,000. The big thing is that minimum damage number there, and that's how it helps the most, in addition to helping you kill lightning immunes with even more ease. We go back to player's 8, of course, make sure we're maxing out here. And don't worry about redoing your enchant for a very long time, unless you die, of course. Look how much damage it is. It looks like player's 1, doesn't it? And that's a lightning immune just getting one shot. So if you're planning on farming like a lot of areas in the game, investing in that enchant pre-buff, all those plus fire skills and fire damage and whatnot. The fire skills being, of course, by far the most important. It's really going to make a big difference. Like I said, you can like push 100,000 damage. And that's not even considering, of course, the negative energy res off of Infinity and everything.
I am overburdened. I am overburdened.
So yeah, we're gonna do a few demos here with Max Enchant. Gonna show off the other alt approach as well. And then it's Ubers. Okay, there we go. Excuse me. Big dab one. Try to kill the ghost for Hirons. Just Terror Zone at the moment. Be okay. Very nice. Okay, so we have that one. Oh! Easy, right? Easy. Definitely easy. Okay, so
I can't carry anymore.
higher HP Terror Zones are also no problem.
Greetings.
I love the Werebear Sorceress. I love the Zeal Sorceress as well. Such awesome builds. Werebear Sorceress definitely has a bit more nuance, which I think a lot of people will find fun. Against Trav, we should have less issues here because we have more fire damage. Once again, the damage is more consistent. Can't really use static field very effectively. The lightning immunes. It's okay. This one's fire and lightning immune. Luckily we have one of the sunders. Remember, you could also use the fire sunder if you want as well. But as you can see, that was a even easier fight, right? That's P8. That extra fire damage helps out quite a bit here.
Yes.
If I do this, it's actually possibly worth it here for me to go down a lightning GC and to use a fire flame rift GC. Now keep in mind our fire resist is going to be really bad if we do this. That's okay. Just don't die, right? Don't get hit. Mowing down monsters that are paws here. Decrep kind of sucks, but that's about it. Definitely a reason why I would say this character is not like the strongest in Chaos, but Chaos is always a good benchmark, right? Sundering the fire immunity does help against them a little bit, as you can see. It also means you lose some lightning damage, so I don't know. Gonna die. Okay.
What do you need?
Alright, let's do this here. Get that static field in. Start wailing. Could use CTA to bow again. I definitely like CTA bow and really high player count. It's nice. As you can see though, not necessary.
I am overburdened.
In hardcore, you definitely want to make sure to be using your CTA bow pretty much as often as you can. No fire is. Oh no.
I am overburdened.
So yeah, it's a lot of damage you can do there. I'd say lowering our fire is though definitely makes some things a little complicated though. Should we get that energy show going? So I only really use that there because there's just a lot of fire immunes in Chaos, so you can definitely like tackle the fire immune problem pretty easily by doing that. No idea of the power I face. That's what they say anyway. No idea.
How may I be of help?
Okay, so we'll do this one. All right. That's pretty good stuff, right? Right, really good stuff. Notice that the enchant is still active, 100%. Pretty easy to keep live there. The lightning one is useful almost all the time though, because there's a lot of lightning immunes. You do mostly do lightning damage, especially when you don't pre-buff. You don't really have. You don't have to use the Sunder Charms though. Being uninterruptible though is pretty fun. So this is where energy shield would actually be quite helpful. So we're actually going to put on our energy shield. Go back here. static field them. The reason why energy shield is more helpful is, once again, it's more useful against physical damage. You see, I can just tank these dudes. Pretty crazy, right? Make sure to keep up our energy shield.
Good afternoon.
So much damage. Okay, so as you can see here, you know, we don't even necessarily need CTA once again. CTA is really good for the Merc too, though, because you know we can definitely tank things with just this energy shield here. So if you don't even want to swap out CTA, I totally understand. Might have to use a few more potions though. Bodish.
I can't carry anymore.
Good evening.
Now it's static field the waves down. Use that, switch to normal attack, and boom. Notice how you can actually get the waves to spawn early as well. That's actually something that's really cool about the Double Dream Confuse right there. I really like it. 62,000 damage here. Look how much damage that is. Yeah, Player's 8 really doesn't stand a chance. Utterly destroyed. Utterly and completely destroyed. This will be exactly the same, of course, without Enchant pre-buff because they're fire immune. Use that Flame Rift against them, though, if you want. Oh, I even got Decrypt. That's not ideal. That's why Holy Freeze is nice too. It just really allows you to hit them every time and to finish them off
I am overburdened.
with ease and without too much problems. Alright, so boom, boom, boom. Alright, Alright, so with Enchant, you know, you can see our damage is even more fluid and higher player count. That should be pretty visible, you know, especially if you compare the videos there. Now, there's another kind of interesting approach on the Werebear specifically that you can't do on the Zeal Sorceress because you need Zeal. That's Crescent Moon. Ugh, Crescent Moon is strong. I'm gonna do it the Crescent Moon approach here. Crescent Moon has, once again, the negative 35% enemy lightning resistance, which is really key stat here. The other thing that's going to be pretty key here is Twitch Throw. That's because Twitch Throw, once again, you don't really need the block rate as much. It doesn't even feel that much better than Zeal Sorc. But Twitch Throw will give us even more attack speed, which we need. Because even with just these items here, we're only hitting 95 attack speed. And that's barely hitting 2 breakpoints below where we're at now. However, with this, we are going to hit insanely hard. So everything, this is like the ultimate like player's 8 drop tactic here. That's what you're going to want to try to pull off. One thing to note is I could pre-buff with this as well. I get more strength than I actually need. Oh wait, no I won't. Never mind, I'll just do it this way. Do want maximum block for sure. Uninterruptible attacks is just so good. And then of course you can either put the rest of your points into energy. You can put no points in energy too. It is an interesting thing to note. And honestly, it wouldn't matter too much if you did that. So I can kind of show that off a little bit here. You know, you have like 2,700 health. Remember, you do synergize off of health a lot. So like, I almost have as much health here as I have with CTA, just by putting all my points into life. But it does mean though that energy shield is gonna be a lot easier to like lose the energy shield. So it really is kind of up to you how you want to balance that.
Not in town.
Remember, sorceresses do scale very well off of energy. You get 4 points of mana per point of energy, but the Werebear with lycanthropy itself scales off of health. So this one's a little more health focused, as you can see, and I'm definitely in this guide showing you guys a lot more of the life-based approaches on the Werebear, which makes 100% sense. Right, let's just put all our points in. That should be all of them, right? Right. Something like that. Okay, so we're gonna use Twitch Throw now and Crescent Moon. So we're gonna show you guys this approach really quick here. This is one of the variants on the Maxroll guide. I do like to show some, if not all, of the variants of the Maxroll guides in a lot of cases. These videos. Some of those variants are a little different though, but hey, that's okay. You just gotta know, baby. Gotta know. Alright, so okay, so what we'll do here is... Alright, so we're going to want a lot of plus skills once again. So we're also going to max out our enchant again. I know. This whole process is pretty involved, as you can see though, right? But it's not as bad as it used to be. Once again, get all those fire skills on pretty effortlessly. You can even get more damage. You can get more fire skills even. More fire skills. Oops. Yeah, more fire skills, more percent fire damage. Get all those plus skills. Make sure you get that really high level enchant. And then we can have that on for now. Put back on our standard gear. Kind of cool how this works though. Okay, so we have those plus skills and whatnot. No, we need those. Thank you. Alright, yeah, so you want to make sure you have 95 attack speed on this approach. And of course, we will be putting on the rest of our light GCs again as well. All the lightning stuff. Lightning stuff, lightning stuff, lightning stuff. And res charms with various stats. Okay, so we have 62,000 damage.
Good afternoon.
Which is pretty awesome. And now what we're gonna do... Oops. No. Want that one. We want that one. Yeah, it's fun, but... We're actually only gonna show off the 2 hardest areas of this particular demo. I don't know what the Terror Zone will switch to. Maybe we'll show that off as well. Alright, notice how weaker enchant cannot override higher enchant, so just in case you do that, don't worry about that too much. It's not a thing. Okay. So yeah, we'll do some chaos here. You'll notice with this approach here, our health is quite a bit higher. And look how much health you get from Werebear form. It's like 800 health versus 300 mana. But the mana running out a lot quicker can be annoying and can make you a lot squishier in a lot of cases. So that's why I prefer the like 50 to 100 points extra mana. Totally just go full health though. If you're doing the hardcore Werebear or Ubers, you just want to go full health every time.
I can't.
Sometimes it can be a bit more quality of life on the standard version though.
Good to see you.
It's always hard to say though, you know, exactly what, you know, you're gonna enjoy playing better though. Just like the Zeal Sword, remember when you teleport, you have good block? That's because the Spirit Monarch has almost the same block chance as the Dream Shield.
Impossible.
It's all about having that, you know, that thing right there. Oh no, a Coronet. I kind of have to pick that up.
I can't carry anymore.
Pick up this Coronet real quick. Let's see what it is.
Good morning.
Wow. That was nice. That was nice, Deckard King. I almost called him Geed.
Greetings.
That was nice, Deckard King. Okay, it's okay. Notice how fast I lose my energy shield sometimes, though. If you don't put some extra points in energy shield, that's a good example right there.
I am overburdened.
It really is kind of preference based, though. You have a lot more health, though. means that we don't have to rely on the energy shield as much as well, so it really goes both ways. I like static field personally. Now notice, one thing that's kind of crap about this is that if you're using this approach, notice I'm attacking slower, but I'm hitting so much harder. So the slower attacking is kind of weak, but I hit really hard with it. Like, look, this is P8. I made it look like, I don't even know, P1 in some regards. Just everything's like dying in one shot. It's so strong against bosses to do this too. Be very, very, very strong, particularly against bosses.
I can't.
You could use either this approach or a crushing blow against Uber Mephisto, but either way, it's really strong. Look at that hit there. Whoa. So yeah, very strong.
Stay a while and listen.
Very, very, very strong. Very strong. Very strong. Yeah, so the Crescent Moon approach hits really hard. You can see there as like one-shotting. After I static those Venom Lords, pretty much one-shotting them, even though they have a lot of lightning and fire res. And that's because we're eating through their lightning res here. It's really going to make a pretty big difference. So what do we have? Flared Jungle? That could be interesting. Not really the best way to test this particular build, but you know. You can do it anyway. Remember, I still have Enchant lasts a billion years pretty much. This is kind of a good way to show it off. Yeah, so notice there he was lightning immune and I killed him in 2 shots in players 8. I mean, just to show you guys, still players 8, but yeah. And that's because of Crescent Moon. So Crescent Moon can actually be quite a nice approach, especially against lightning immunes. We're going in heavy lightning immune areas. This will feel kind of nice. The one thing that you'll notice that it doesn't feel very good is the fact that, you know, I'm swinging slower. I personally like swinging faster, but is why I would consider that to be the standard build, but this build is very solid. Crescent Moon would have never been able to be a thing unless they changed the attack speed formula to accept attack speed not just on the weapon. Because before, 20 attack speed on your weapon would make you attack insanely sluggishly. So it's kind of interesting that even though you can't quite attack as fast as you used to, there's some other advantages, right? You know, there's the advantage where you don't have to use this ultra fast weapon, but you can, so you can attack fast still. And you can even use something like Crescent Moon here, which is oh, I'm attacking so slow. Good thing we have the Crescent Moon against that though. It's lightning enchanted. Yeah, you know, a lot of these dudes will be like lightning enchanted too. They're gonna be lightning immune, and you can just kill them. If you're gonna be fighting dolls though in the dungeon or something though, make sure you got that energy shield up though. It's a pretty big difference. Also, notice how much damage just the level 30 Holy Shock does, especially if you static all the monsters down before killing them. It's really quite something. Alright, so go back to that. Beast is giving us a lot of strength, as you can see. Just one-shot everything. Now remember, normal attack doesn't cost mana, so even if you run out of mana, one really cool thing about that is you won't be using basic attack. I mean, you won't be using any weaker attack ever. You're always going to be using your strongest attack. And it's uninterruptible. Oh, yeah. Might hurt your shield. That's a doll. That is definitely a doll.
I can't.
Or of course you can put your scrolls in her belt there. If you want to,
Impossible.
yeah, I don't even know. I think I'm trying to make this work, trying to pick it up, but it's difficult. Alright, here we go. This guy's lightning immune too. That's a good demo of the power of. That's players 8 lightning immune there, going down to Crescent Moon Bearsork. So as you can see, Crescent Moon Bearsork is a beast in his own right. Just really strong.
Good to
I
see
can show you guys some Worldstone Keep with it as well. Show you guys some Travancore. I guess Travancore would be pretty cool to show Crescent Moon versus, huh? Yep.
Yes.
And then we'll show you guys some of the final demos today, which will be Uber's. That will be the Werebear Sorceress guide. Of course, we'll have 2.6 updated Zealsork and Werebear Sorceress guides. And hopefully we'll even get the new Enchant Sorc in a video guide form as well for you guys, so you guys can also check that out soon. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Now we still have everything. Do the static field thing. Try to keep her Merc alive. That can be challenging sometimes, especially if they're all like bunched up like this, because then all the hiders are bunched up. There you go. Well, doesn't matter. Look how fast we destroyed them. So, as you can see, lightning immunes are so much more efficient, even with the slower attack speed with the Crescent Moon build.
Yes.
I wouldn't consider this standard though. Because like I said, you know, you don't attack as fast. It's really only good in really high player count against lightning immunes specifically. Like any kind of other player count situation, the other build's going to be better because you can hit more things, you know? It's going to be one-shotting things anyway, so it's definitely like a really nice high player count lightning immune approach. And you can get all the attack speed you need without any of the dreams being involved. And you at least hit a pretty decent break point here. So, very good stuff. And of course we'll do one more demo with this setup and then it's Uber time. You can see that this character, just like the other characters, are very good at Ubers. Poor Mercenary. Notice how much damage this character does. It's really ridiculous. Like, this is P8. Like,
I can't carry
I mean, I'll type it again just to show you guys. Like, it really gets insane when you use Crescent Moon. But as you can see, since I'm swinging slower, when they're not lightning immune, I'm actually slowed down a bit. So it's not... I wouldn't consider this to be a universal approach. Look how slow I attack, especially when I'm like frozen or something with this. It's really slow. That's definitely not the finest point of this particular setup. Nice, so we'll go with that. Oh no, that's not good. That's okay. We have the Sunder Charm and we have Crescent Moon, so we can still kill them in pretty much one shot. How much damage we do. You don't even need the Mercenary's Conviction Aura to kill those.
Good evening.
That's how crazy it can get like this. Alright, so notice that my energy shield's definitely going out a lot. Now that's partially because of, you know, souls and things like that, but not completely. Yeah, just having a bit more mana, you know, a couple hundred more mana really helps out quite a bit. But that is a preference thing. It's just like the Zeal Sorceress, you can kind of build it pure Vita or Energy Shield, depending on your preference and what situation you're facing. I think there's advantages and disadvantages to all these different approaches, so it's very good stuff just in general. Even though I attack slower though, just my overall damage is really high. Negative 35 light res does help against a lot of monsters, especially ones with more than 0 light res. Otherwise it's not really doing all that much, but don't tell the monsters to retreat, bro. Werebear coming in. So yeah, this whole time it's just been in Player's 8. Doesn't really look like it though. I'll continue this here. Boom. And we'll do some Ubers as well here, and we'll be good. That is such disgusting damage. Notice that your attack rating gets quite a bit higher when you like pre-buff Enchant. That'll help out a tiny bit, like I said, especially against things like bosses, so let's keep that in mind. Notice that I pretty much hit everything every time anyway, but with either approach, but that's just, you know, something to keep in mind here. Okay, so we'll do that. Can do this, kind of buff ourselves up a bit here. Couple of static fields, transform back. As long as you don't get decrept with this much attack speed, it's not bad. And notice that once I do get decrept, it's really bad. It's not even quite as bad with the other attack speed because I'm not slowed down nearly as much. Yeah, against really high res enemies, things that just have a lot of res in general, this approach is going to crush. Because that Sunder Charm, you know, gets them all down to 95 no matter what, even if they're lightning immune. Everything else without as much lightning resistance gets smashed. This approach here does more damage than the Zeal Sword can even dream of doing, at least per hit. This is really where the strength of the Werebear Sorceress really comes in here. Yeah, everything's down to 95, and then of course Infinity will take it down another 17, but their res is still pretty high, right? You know, it's like what, 70, 78? But if you take down an immunity's res another further 35, the res is 43, and that's like, it's like almost double damage in a lot of cases against some of these monsters. You don't need that damage and lower player count or anything like that, but just for the sake of understanding there, it's really strong to have that. Really strong indeed. Now, what's interesting here is for standard Ubers, I don't really have to do too much. I don't have to change anything up. I can actually leave on the Crescent Moon if I want to. And I can just deal with them that way. However, Uber Mephisto necessitates different gear approaches, and he needs Crushing Blow. You could use Crescent Moon against him, but he has so much light res that it's still really hard to kill him, even with like low resistance. So there are different approaches we can use, but of course I can show them here. I'll show some of the different approaches. I personally like just to put on, if you can afford it, just put on some Crushing Blow, and then you'll kill them so much. You'll kill Mephisto particularly so much faster. The fact that he's lightning immune really makes it to where like, and the fact that he regens makes him a little difficult for sure. So definitely might want to consider a specialized approach against him particularly. All right, so what we're gonna do now though. I don't know how much longer my enchant buff has on it. I have to redo the enchant buff pretty soon.
Good evening.
We're actually going to start Ubers now, though, no matter what. So let's do the first initial keys. So let's do mini Ubers. Mini Ubers, you really don't have to do anything special. It's just like the Zeal Sork. You really don't have to do much. You can check your resistances for sure. You can shore them up a bit if you want. Just make sure whatever you do, make sure you're in players 1 when you do Ubers. Otherwise, it's going to be so much harder. Like, so much harder, so. Yeah, make sure you do that, and you'll be good to go. Ubers are pretty awesome. We're going to make all 3 portals there. We're just going to go at them. We're going to use the Crescent Moon build here. Crescent Moon, very strong once again with that negative enemy res. It's very strong against targets that just don't die in one hit, right? So Ubers would definitely fall in that category. Absolutely. Okay, so oh, looks like our enchant is gone. I was afraid of that. Yeah, so it looks like we're gonna have to pre-buff the enchant. It's already been like almost 30 minutes since we did it last. This goes to show you just how many things we go over in these videos. At any rate though, you know, we'll do it. It's really not a huge deal. Kind of a shame I don't have a lidless wall on me in this moment. Could get +1 more skill if I wanted to. Not gonna make a big difference really, but you know. It's always nice to be totally maxed out, you know, if you can. Alright, so we got enchant here. There we go. Enchanted again. You get more used to finding your stuff, especially if your stash is this cluttered. It can sometimes be, you know, significantly more difficult. One thing to note against Ubers as well is you definitely don't need magic find, so put on all the fun life approaches if you want here. Absolutely. The problem though is that oftentimes alright, let's go, let's continue. These portals are very loud. Make loud noises. Okay, yes, you can hear them from the other side of the map practically. I don't know if I have life poison resistable terms on me at the moment for this demo. Maybe not. Okay, well that's fine. We'll just use that then. Alright, so as you can see, we're, I think, no we're not. Missing all kinds of things again. Or just that. Just one thing. Okay. Alright, our damage should be fine again. You can go bow. I definitely recommend against Ubers to bow at least, even the mini Ubers. Static killed him down. Conviction, that's gonna hurt pretty bad. As you can see here, even with our lack of hit rating, there's so much damage to them, they die pretty easily. You can't regen the amount of health that you in damage that you can do. One thing you can do also is if, like, let's say you just don't have attack rating on one of your rings and whatnot, you can consider doing something like this, where you just put on like attack rating charms. It's not something I would say you should do most of the time, but you definitely can. Pre-buffing is really good against the Ubers though. I have all the time in the world, so maybe we'll... Oh wait, what am I doing? Visual and just toast. There you go. Pretty easy, right? Pretty easy. As long as the Mercenary's up, like mini Ubers are super easy, but just like the Zeal Sorceress, the big Ubers definitely proved to be a bit more difficult. I noticed that, you know, we do attack slower with the Crescent Moon. You can go the other approach and attack faster as well. It's totally fine. Thank goodness for max block, right? I'm gonna have to rebuy the Mercenary. Try to clear out all the witches that do amp. If you're ever amped against Ubers, it's big damage. You're definitely risking death. Yeah. Bow doesn't last very long, so that's one of the reasons why it can get annoying to use CTA on this build and to swap it out. But you know what it is, you know. Oh god. Oh. Alright, so I don't think we can kill her without the Mercenary very easily, actually. Unless we swap to the Crushing Blow approach. We are amped too. She can kill us. Can we actually kill her without the Mercenary? Guess we can with Crescent Moon, yeah. Wow, no conviction required. There you go. You can see though a static field though, and you saw I think from the first hit on when the Mercenary is alive, that, you know, you can pretty much like 3-shot these bosses after we static them down. As long as we have the conviction aura, but without it, it's okay. You don't need it. Now, those are all the mini Ubers, as you can see. Mini Ubers, not really that much of a problem. The real problems start to become when we prepare for Uber Mephisto. So, of course, we are already enchanted, so make sure that you do the enchant pre-buff thing for sure, at the very least. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure to get this treachery pre-buff as well. But before we do that, really going to want to make sure that we get as much res as possible here. So, Mephisto has a level 20 conviction aura. It will reduce your fire, lightning, and cold resistance by 125 apiece. That is going to hurt. For obvious reasons, you know, it's pretty painful. Pretty painful. So, Your real goal here is to make sure you can get your lightning res mostly high enough where if you also have the Crack of the Heavens and you have Fade on, that won't go below 85 resistance. We're going to need a source of open wounds for this. And we're also going to show you guys the Werebear Phase Blade approach. I might actually show you guys the Crescent Moon approach first, just to show you guys, you know, you can maybe go Crushing Blow, Open Wounds, and you could use the Open Wounds off of Crescent Moon. Like, you could do this for sure. Yeah, you know what? Let's go something kind of standard, but with T-Gods, just to show you guys kind of how that looks. Let's go something semi-standard with T-Gods, and then have the same amount of attack speed with Crescent Moon. And then, of course, the other thing we're going to want to employ here is the lower resist charge wand. And level 3 lower resistance you can get starting at level 93 with a level 93 character from Drognin. And you can just buy this, and it's going to increase our damage massively. Now, the Infinity Aura on the Mercenary isn't going to do anything against Mephisto because his Conviction Aura level is higher. So you really need negative res from other sources. So we're going to do that first, but just to warn you guys, that's not usually considered to be super ideal. Alright, so the rest of this, got pretty solid res though. And then T-Gods is going to absorb his most powerful attack, which is his chargeable attack. You really need super high light res to counteract it, especially if you're using Crack of the Heavens. No matter what you do, then we're going to use Treachery. Now this first approach might be kind of janky. Like I said, I kind of prefer having the Crushing Blow. I'm more of a Crushing Blow person when it comes to Mephisto, because he's a bit of a pain. Alright, so Treachery though is pretty big though. Treachery has a 5% chance to cast level 15 Fade. That's going to give us approximately 60 all res. Going to give us something like 15 DR as well, and it's going to reduce curse duration. That's not going to matter for this, but it's very useful to pre-buff before you do Uber Tristram. And pre-buffing the Enchant is really big for the attack rating as well. There's a lot of things here that can definitely be pretty big. Come on, man. I'm burning up, but not getting faded just yet. What's interesting is that fire is nice because the monsters don't actually have to hit you. It's something that just always hits no matter what. There's no attack rating involved, so you can just go in the fire and proc it. So that's what we're gonna do here. If we can do it. On Treachery. Proc, buddy, proc. Now, Guardian Angel, I like Guardian Angel against the Ubers as well because you can have even more resistances, which is nice. But you don't need it. Like I said, you can go use this like Crescent Moon approach as well. Run on my Maxroll guide, you know, it will work. This will work, doesn't matter. Okay, so there we have it. We are officially faded. That's gonna only last like 3.5 minutes though. So unless you're gonna want to do it again, which might have to happen if I want to show you guys these different approaches here, but hopefully not. You're gonna want to do that. Remember, make sure you're in players 1. Always make sure you're in players 1 for this. Alright, for the fade, we are good. We are 100% good there. First, remember, put your call to arms back in, and then you can also use this as well. So, call to arms is good. You could throw some of this stuff on the ground as well if you want, though. The real key, of course, is going to be using We're gonna go into bear form automatically. You can't static. Actually, no. Actually, let's not go into bear form automatically. Yeah, that's right. We have to make sure that we can cast the lower resist on him and then go into bear form. So, this here, you can put this on you, doesn't really matter. So then, we're going to draw out Mephisto by going all the way to the bottom here and then separate him from the rest of them to make it easier. Oh, what the heck? Oh. Now notice here, with all this lower res, you can actually do a lot of damage to Mephisto. And we have 85 light res, so that's not what we wanted though. I want to make sure to separate Mephisto from the rest of them. Oh dear. Okay, so we can go back and put this back on him. As you can see though, this whole situation is pretty involved. Don't worry about the don't worry about trying to get whatchamacallit on it yet, by the way. So as you can see, lower resist, really good. Open wounds, solid. Finish them off just as the lower resist went away, and then boom. So we can just kill him with Crescent Moon. Crescent Moon has a lot of open wounds. Just gotta use the Light Sunder and Crescent Moon, and then bam, he's dead. Now that other weapon that you saw in my stash there is also very useful here, potentially. You can just go pure Crushing Blow. I do like having some Crushing Blow though on top of all that and making sure you have the attack speed. But the negative enemy res off of Crescent Moon is really big. You can break his immunity with that, and then having even more negative res off of lower resist from your Mercenary using Plagues, if you want to use an Act 5 Mercenary, or using the wand here is definitely going to work really well. This, of course, would also work. Basically, you just be a standard Maul Druid at that point using Crushing Blow and Open Wounds, and then you'd kill him that way as well. So, a lot of different ways to kill him with the Werebear Druid. You pretty much have to use the lower resist approach, though, on the Sorceress, though. You have to use the Crushing Blow approach with some lower resist, because you can't put a Crescent Moon on your build, otherwise you don't have Zeal. I mean, you could just use regular attack, I guess, but it's not nearly as good. It's much better to be in bear form and to use that, so that's some solid stuff. So Mephisto, he's a little bit of a problem always on these builds, but as you can see, you know, he's not too bad. Definitely could be a lot worse, right? Definitely could be a lot worse. So we still have our Enchant, of course. Now, if you want your Mercenary to survive any amount of time at all, just bow with the CTA again, which I threw on the ground just to have some space here. And then, of course, you can throw that back up. And then we can use this to increase our damage against one of them. I don't really know what Bale. Okay, well that answered my question. Well, they're both kind of close. Try to separate them. Separating them makes it like so much easier.
Impossible.
I think Bale is easier to separate because he likes to teleport. Notice there that unlike Mephisto, they don't have lightning immunity. So if you use all this lower res stuff on them and conviction and whatnot, you're gonna kill them. think we're actually able to hit him. I think that's the problem, is it keeps blocking us. Yeah, this is a little bit of a problem with him. But look how much damage we do to him when we do hit him though. Need to get that open wounds proc off of the Crescent Moon so he stops healing. Yeah, look how hard that hits. This is insane, right? So much damage. But he's still healing. I also put the Durus on the Mercenary to prevent him from healing too. And of course, remember you can also put on like Drax or Durus to prevent him from healing, just to increase the amount of open wounds on him. Yeah, honestly, might have to increase if we don't have enough attack rating here. Or he will just go down eventually like this. Come on. There we go. Eventually. It's kind of a pain because he blocks. There we go. Okay. Yeah, you gotta make sure you have at least the open wounds though off of something like Crescent Moon though. And that's gonna be pretty solid. But you can also use Drax. Drax can also heal you a little bit too as well, which isn't bad. You know, I showed the Drax in my stash. I showed the 2-bird 60 attack speed weapon, which can help get your attack speed up while also using Drax. So there's a lot of very cool approaches you can use on this character for sure. But believe it or not, we're actually not done, so there's still Diablo to kill. If you wanted to buff up again, you can. Not super important though. So as you can see, he dies pretty fast. Just static field. Come on, Mercenary, come over here. Need conviction on him. I don't have enough attack rating otherwise. Diablo, of course, is the easiest one, just like with the Zeal Sork. I do think it's a little easier to do all this with the Zeal Sork, though, because you hit more times. It's also a little easier to get your attack rating higher on the Zeal Sork sometimes. But overall, it's not bad. And it's just a lot of fun. Does a ton of damage once you hit them. The mini Ubers are a cinch. And then, of course, Bale's a little tougher. He loves to heal, so having open wounds is really key for him. And then Mephisto, and of course, you know, having some of that conviction aura on those two. And then Mephisto, just make sure that he's the easiest one to hit of all of them. Just make sure that you have open wounds and either crushing blow or a lot of negative enemy light res off of Crescent Moon. That's pretty much the only way you can do it. And the open wounds, of course, in this case, is on Crescent Moon. So that's even cooler. Alright. Anyway, those are really awesome demos to show you guys some different approaches here. And boom, 2015 Amazon torch. Wow, that's actually pretty sick. That's a good Amazon torch. It's a really good one, but since it's just a demo and it's on single player, we don't need it. It is a cool Amazon torch, they're not gonna lie. A really nice finish to that. That would definitely trade for a lot. Yeah, GG. As you guys can see, the Werebear Sorceress is literally a beast. This is definitely not your cuddly Winnie the Pooh teddy bear. He's a monster. Yeah, she just hits things so hard, and you can retain pretty nice attack speed. So you can keep swiping at things and crushing them and lower player count, along with, of course, the aura itself and really high player count, especially against immunities. Things like Crescent Moon is gonna start getting even stronger. The Crescent Moon approach, of course, will also crush Ubers. Leaving Crush Mephisto because the negative enemy res is really the key to doing all that damage. Of course, you can also attack faster as well. Maybe use Crushing Blow, so you can use that as well. I mean, you can still use like a standard Crushing Blow approach. But that's no fun when you have Double Dream and do so much lightning damage, right? You kind of, most of the time, just want to use that Elemental. Yeah, anyway, we'll have the chapters for every section of this guide so you guys can review it, of course. There's just a lot of really fun and awesome aspects of this build. I hope you enjoyed all the nuances, all the mechanics of switching back and forth, switching weapons sometimes, and just getting crazy, crazy damage. Just a lot of fun, like, you know. Did you know that the Sorceress had it in her to do these types of things, to crush people with melee attacks? I think a lot of people that played this game probably didn't even realize the Sorceress can do stuff like that. Probably just thought she was she's always just a glass cannon that attacked things from afar or maybe up close, but with a lot of defensive power. They probably didn't realize how much damage you can output in melee range. Crazy stuff. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below of this guide and other guides. Remember, we have all these insane D2 guides, PD2 and D2R, on my YouTube here. We also have, of course, at maxroll.gg, the highest quality written guides for Diablo 2 on there as well. Anyway, guys, GG. Catch me on Twitch if you want. Dark Humility, let's get it. Dark Humility, over and out. See you guys next time.